Well, I know you've all been sitting there waiting anxiously for a new Neil Breen movie to come along and knock your socks off.
I can't wait any longer.
Well, here it is. After 5 long years, Neil has released the sequel to Twisted Pair, and not only does it make no sense at all, it manages to be his worst movie yet.
This is what we've been practicing for.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show, and yes, here it is, Neil's new movie, Cade, The Tortured Crossing. Neil has made 6 movies over the past 2 decades or so, and after watching all of them, I can honestly say that this is a man who loves making movies. And while I can respect the ambition and dedication that it takes to do that, the thing I find most fascinating is that there's never really been any real improvement.
No, that is not true.
Actually, I kind of take that back because Neil has not been naked in his last few movies, believe it or not, so that's a welcome change. You know, that's improvement, I guess.
It's clean. It's all clean.
When I reviewed Twisted Pair 4 years ago, I said that not only was he seemingly not learning anything as a filmmaker, but it felt like his movies were actually getting worse and less coherent.
I've lost control. Who am I? What am I?
And guess what? The trend continues somehow. I watched this movie as soon as I got it in the mail, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I was actually expecting more from Neil. And I didn't even think that was possible.
Who am I? What am I?
Neil's movies tend to have a lot of the same themes, and you know what? I think the track record speaks for itself at this point. This is really just a series of vanity projects where Neil makes himself some sort of a superhuman special agent who saves the world from corruption and is irresistible to attractive younger women. In Double Down, he was a secret agent hacker with some kind of a tuna fish addiction. In I Am Here Now, he was some sort of all-powerful cyber alien god who liked to have really, really awkward sex scenes with his co-star.
I hope humanity has learned its lesson. Otherwise, I will turn this planet into dust.
In Fateful Findings, he was a guy who gets hit by a car and somehow develops superpowers, as well as the ability to hack into government agencies with computers that don't work.
I'm going to continue hacking into these government systems to see what I can find out. I can't believe you committed suicide. I cannot believe you committed suicide. You have got to go to the police. Now!
In Pass Through, he was some form of artificial intelligence from the future.
I can manipulate the planes of space and time.
This is my universe!
And in Twisted Pair, Neil managed to cram even more of himself into a movie by casting himself as twin brothers Cade and Cale, who were abducted by aliens and turned into humanoid superheroes or something, and then were given missions by the aliens.
I'll be right here.
One of the brothers, Cale, the one with the beard, was such a screw-up that I guess the aliens took away his powers, so he started spending his days doing drugs and fighting with his girlfriend.
What the hell are you doing?
Twisted Pair was incredibly incoherent. A lot of times it was simply impossible to know just what the hell was happening or what planet they were even on. Twisted Pair also had some moments that were similar to Fateful Findings in the sense that they felt like something from a bad dream, which is why I said way back in my Fateful Findings review that Neil Breen is like the David Lynch of bad movies. And with this latest effort, it looks like Neil Breen has now entered the George Lucas making the prequels era of his career, because this entire movie was shot using green screens, which just makes it so much worse. At least his other movies were mostly shot on location. This movie is just a series of shots poorly composited with a variety of stock footage or photographs, many of which are used over and over and over again. At times, it kind of looks like one of those old point-and-click computer games. Other than that, this movie has everything you'd expect in a Breen film. The writing and acting are awful, and I don't know how else to explain it, but it always feels like the same kind of awful in every movie. I have no doubt this is in part because of Neil's direction of the actors, and the fact that Neil has always struggled with writing dialogue that feels the least bit natural, so a lot of times it doesn't feel like the characters are actually interacting with each other.
Programmable virtual reality.
Programmable DNA.
Programmable virtual reality.
Programmable matter.
We are on the verge of mind hacking.
This is very serious.
But this movie takes it to a whole new level. A lot of the scenes in this movie are just shots of people making statements with no interaction at all.
Damn it, this isn't working! This isn't working!
Where are they?
Sometimes you don't even know who they're supposed to be talking to, because we never see who they're talking to. The scene just ends.
This will be our secret.
You were never one of us, you liar!
Liar!
I told you everything you wanted to know. There's nothing more I can tell you. That's all I know!
You're done. Come get me!
From a technical standpoint, the movie is like a cross between a PowerPoint presentation and a high school media class project from 15 years ago. There's points in the movie where he'll use still frames as reaction shots, and it's like he thinks we won't notice.
Don't ask how I did it.
So there's this scene where he's just walking across this field for no reason, and he does this all the time. He'll intercut stuff like this with reaction shots, but the reaction shots aren't really reacting to anything in particular, or the character will be moving in the scene, but standing completely still in the reaction shot. This is where Neil sees a tiger, because of course. And it looks like he actually hired a CGI artist to animate this tiger. And this is probably the biggest improvement he's made across all his movies. I mean, the last time we saw him with the tiger was in Pass-Through, and that looked like, well, this. So I guess I have to say this is an improvement. I mean, at least the tiger looks like it's actually interacting with him. The rest of the movie is just filled with editing mistakes, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to be able to cover all of them because there's just so many, and I got stuff to do today. The movie starts with stock footage, which should come as no surprise. Neil is playing Cade, who is talking on the phone with a woman who he hangs up on, but somehow she continues the conversation with him, and then we get to see something that we haven't seen since Fateful Findings, Neil getting hit by a moving vehicle. But I have to tell you, even though this looks incredibly convincing, don't worry because no Breens were harmed during the making of this. Now, you may be wondering, why is this even in the movie? Well, I guess it's to remind the audience that Cade has superhuman abilities and that nobody in this city gives a crap if someone gets run over in the middle of the street. Then Cade finds a bunch of people trapped inside of an SUV, and wow, I mean, all these superhuman abilities like flying, super strength, being invincible to bullets and explosions, and yet he can't figure out a way to get some people out of a vehicle that even has the windows down. Cade follows the SUV to some sort of warehouse where he lets the hostages go and then fights the bad guys. The funny thing about this is that these bad guys are just the same actors as the hostages. They're just wearing masks, and then he escapes.
We just missed him.
And where do I even start with this? I guess these are flames in the background, even though they're not moving. And what's all this black stuff supposed to be? Smoke? Well, whatever it is, it's too bad that they didn't scale the effect to fit the whole frame. So Cade shows up at his presentation, which appears to be in the main entrance of a mansion and a convention center at the same time. Cade is like a superior version of Batman that has superpowers, I guess. He fights crime, and he's very rich, flying around in private jets and driving Ferraris, which is weird because he spent almost all of Twisted Pair in this same outfit. I mean, say what you will about Batman, at least he was willing to spring for a belt. Cade donates a bunch of money to remodel this old mental hospital, and this is where a lot of the movie takes place. At one point, they tell the patients that they're going on a field trip, so they put them in the SUV where the driver is getting drunk off of empty bottles.
What the hell are you doing? Put that away.
Where is she sitting? On the floor between the front and second row of seats?
Be careful, you fool.
Again, this type of stuff is all throughout the movie. Simple editing mistakes. How do you not notice this when you're watching it back in the editing program? This is a full 3 frames where she's just floating in the forest. Anyways, the drunk driver crashes the car, and here's something that Neil does all the time, which I don't get. He's using this photo for the background, okay? But then he goes in for a close-up, which means that there has to be a change in perspective. So the background is then scaled to match up with that, which is great. But then he does this.
Stay here.
I just don't understand this. You just did it for the last shot. So what happened here? Did you forget? How do you not notice this? Doesn't this look weird to you? The most baffling part about all of this is that Neil says that his editing process involves constantly refining and going over the edit again and again, and yet neither he nor his editor notice these mistakes. Anyways, after Neil is done fighting the tiger, it turns into a large-breasted woman, of course, and it probably wouldn't shock you to learn that I have no idea what any of this means because it makes no sense. Cade invites them to come stay at his house, and they're all a little hesitant because he's a stranger.
We don't know anything about you. He is a stranger, yes, and we don't know anything about him.
Except that he isn't a stranger. Both of these doctors know him. The movie starts with this doctor talking to him on the phone. And then after his little speech, he's talking to both of them.
What he's getting involved with.
Thank you.
Dangerous.
Excellent work, Cade. We're all proud of you. We back you 100%.
Yes, they back you 100%. Except that as soon as this is over, these two characters are going to totally forget you. Who you are, what you look like. The next time you run into them, they will have zero recollection of anything to do with you. None. Right? Yeah, see? None. In all seriousness, one explanation for this is that the story is not in chronological order. And if that's the case, good luck trying to piece this together. It's almost as if Neil tried to make the most confusing movie possible, because there's no real indication of what is supposed to take place at what point. What's a dream? What's a flashback? You have to find a way to convey these things to the audience. Otherwise, you leave everyone watching a jumbled mess without a hope in hell of understanding what's actually going on. Especially when, on top of everything I just said, you have actors playing more than one character, and sometimes these additional characters are in one scene. Hey, isn't this the same actor who plays one of the main doctors, Megan? Is she supposed to be Megan in this scene, or someone else? How about this actor who plays the other main doctor named Megan? Isn't this just her in a wig? We've never seen this character before, and we'll never see them again. Seems kinda strange. The same bad guys appear at the beginning and the end of the movie and are somehow killed twice. So yeah, chronological order or not, it really doesn't matter because this movie makes no sense. At one point they go to Cade's house, which is a castle and he tells them he has 30 bedrooms that they can choose from, so of course they choose to sleep on the floor. The one doctor apparently wants to get it on with Cade because, well, nothing says I want to bang you like letting down your 4 feet of hair. And I have to say, if I was Cade here, I would be like, actually, can you put it back up? Just don't want to feel like I'm having sex with Cousin It. It would get in the way. It would be a pain in the ass, honestly. At some point, that hair is getting into places where you're just like, God damn it, again?
You get back down here right now, girl. Come back down now.
Cade turns into the Terminator at one point and fixes the car so that the people can all go back to the hospital. No sign of the driver, though. I guess he's dead. Which brings up the question, where were they going initially? A field trip? To where? For what? Cade visits the hospital and he's like, holy crap, this place is a dump. This is unacceptable. This place needs to be cleaned up immediately. So he goes and knocks some things over and kicks stuff around because that'll help the situation. Most of the movie takes place in these photographs of an old hospital, and a lot of these scenes aren't even really scenes. It's shots of people lying around, doing nothing, sitting around, doing nothing, looking around at nothing, and the shots where people are doing something, it's unclear exactly what these people are doing or why they're doing it. At one point, I wasn't sure if the hospital was supposed to be haunted or something, because these are the co-directors of the hospital, and they are freaking out at the sounds that the patients are making. Because, you know, the patients are in pain. You just think that as doctors, they would have heard the sound of people in pain before.
I don't know!
There really is no middle ground when it comes to Neil's writing. It's either so incredibly cryptic that you have no way of knowing what's going on, or he just comes out and tells the audience exactly what's going on. And I'm not exaggerating. Cale is wandering around kidnapping people to be used in some sort of gene editing experiment that's going on inside the hospital. And the reason I know that is because Cale just comes out and tells the audience that in this narration, which comes out of nowhere and serves no stylistic purpose, so it's really just exposition.
I assist in the kidnapping of the youth to become experimental patients at the hospital.
Again, no idea what Cale is supposed to be doing here. Even the shots where you can see what they're doing are completely pointless because none of this makes any sense. Seriously, watch this. Tell me what he's doing here. Yeah, you can't because he's not actually doing anything. What's going on over here? Are they injecting this guy with air? On and on it goes. The same shit over and over again. People lying in beds, groaning, looking scared. Oh, here's Cade walking up some stairs. Captivating stuff. Cale is able to fade into scenes. I don't understand how. He's not a ghost and he has no powers. The aliens took those away. I guess the gene editing drugs he's taking somehow allow him to do this. Go invisible. I would go so far to say that 99% of the interactions in this movie do not feel realistic or natural in any way, and a lot of them seem to be completely meaningless. And just when you think it can't possibly get any more incoherent, the keyboard guy comes outside and starts playing, and then for the next 2 minutes, we get this. Suddenly, and out of nowhere, Cade and the one doctor are in love because, of course, I mean, it wouldn't be a Neil Breen movie without this. At one point, Casper the Busty Ghost shows up, and again, the character seems completely pointless, but I can think of 2 reasons why Neil wanted her in the movie. I'm actually shocked she doesn't fall in love with him too. Consistency and continuity have never been Neil's strengths, and this movie reinforces that notion to the nth degree. Sometimes the size of the characters varies, even though the scene takes place in the same location. Like, look at these two scenes. Was it really that hard to check how big the people were in the first one and line them up? But this one is even more egregious, and it's not even close. Take a look at this. I'm just gonna fast forward here to show you that this is actually the same goddamn scene. There are no words for this. And on top of everything, Neil can't even be consistent with the name of his main character. In Twisted Pair, the last name of the brothers was Altair, but in this movie, it's Altair. I've seen some people online saying that maybe Neil is in on the joke now and this movie is supposed to represent that, but I've seen nothing that would make me believe that he's become that self-aware, not even remotely close. And again, I would like to see him really improve and move forward as a filmmaker, but I don't think that's ever going to happen.
I'll be right here.
Neil has his 5-film retrospective for sale on his website for $160, just in case you wanted to spend 5 hours and 45 minutes listening to him talk about his movies. I like how it says that film students and experienced indie filmmakers will find this information very valuable, educational, and insightful. I decided to watch this because I was genuinely curious, and I can honestly say this is one of the hardest things I've ever had to sit through.
Being creative, using your imagination, being a bold filmmaker, take risks.
There are parts of this retrospective that are literally repeated throughout. A lot of it is just clips of his movies. There's 30 minutes of him going through a slideshow of photos and behind the scenes footage. At one point, he tries to use his history as an architect to compare filmmaking to architecture.
In filmmaking, unlike a building, the film will make you laugh, cry, think. The building in the macro scale won't make you emote, whereas a film will make you emote.
Now, from everything I've seen and heard, Neil is apparently very professional on set. Everybody gets paid, everybody gets fed. He tries to do everything by the book, which I'll give him a lot of credit for. I can't fault him for that. But what I will fault him for is straight up lying when it comes to some of the stuff in his movies.
That's a real tiger. It's not CGI. It's not an animated tiger.
It may be footage of a real tiger that you put into this scene, but you did not shoot this tiger. It is not there with you on location.
I designed these exteriors. The background that I also designed.
Neil says that he designed this multiple times, which clearly isn't true. I can go into Shutterstock right now and find this in seconds. Now, I should note there are some things in this retrospective that I agree with.
Be creative as a filmmaker.
Some of you might be like, hey Mark, in your last video, you said that movie was in your top 10 of the worst movies you've ever seen. Well, shouldn't Neil's movies take up more than half of that list? And the answer is no, because Neil's movies are in a league of their own. They're in their own universe. I can only rank them with each other. Now, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Even if I don't like the movie, I'll always respect the ambition to go out there and make your own movie and tell the story that you want to tell. Clearly, Neil has done that, even though I will say I think he put a lot more effort into the movies that came before this one. Fateful Findings in particular, to me, that is like the quintessential Neil Breen experience. So if you only watch one, make it that one. I want to thank all of my supporters on Buy Me a Coffee, Patreon, and my YouTube channel members. I want to thank all of you for tuning in, but that's pretty much it for this one, and I'll see you all next time. But even still, every time he comes out with a new movie, I just sit there terrified that he's going to suddenly show me a part of himself that I don't want to see. I've already seen enough. Too much, really. We all have. This is a full 3 frames where she's just floating in the forest. The irony here is that the guy who helps Neil edit his movies is the same guy driving the car. This movie cost me quite a bit to get a copy of, much more than I would ever like to spend on a movie, especially one of Neil's, but buying it directly through him and having him mail me a copy is currently the only legal way to get it. It would be nice if there was a way to buy a digital copy, especially in HD, but Neil says he won't be selling digital copies until the end of this year.